Welcome to Lettuce, Turnip, and Sprout. It is the new podcast on Grow With Angie, and I am excited for you guys to be here today. I want to thank you for submitting some questions on my social media platforms, and I'm just kind of having a little difficulty here with some banner stuff. Hang on just a second. I just want to make that go away. Hopefully, you guys can't see that. Anyway, I'm totally distracted. So I want to say thank you for submitting those questions, and I'm going to go over those today. Let's see if I can show. There we go. Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. So if you guys are ready, I'm going to start us off with some of those questions. And at the end, I'm going to talk about aphid problems and bugs in hydroponics, because that is something that a lot of us face and it's a big struggle. But I want to start off right away with your questions. So these are some that were submitted to me earlier this week. This one comes from Haley, and Haley wants to know what is the best bang for your buck when it comes to plants for indoor gardening. So this could be whatever type of hydroponic system you're using, whether it be a DIY or a preset kit, it will not matter. And my list, number one on my list, is basil. I have had some basil plants that are going on just about a year. I set up my first hydroponic system last October, and they are 2 out of the 4 were from last year. And I have learned over the years or the year what I could make with basil, because it is so insane, excuse me, how much basil I get. So I've done everything from, basil pesto and basil vinaigrette and now basil ice cubes. And I do have a video on that, on how to make all of those. But basil definitely is one of them. Another one on my list would be cilantro. Cilantro takes a little bit to get started, but it really will take off once it kind of really grabs root and starts to sprout all over the place. You will have so much cilantro, and those plants will actually last a very long time. I get to a point where I've just cut off them so much, I have to reseed and start over. So that would be my second one. My third one is probably parsley. And you probably don't know what to do with parsley. That is one of those things that it grows just this big, flourishing green on the front of your hydroponic systems or however you're doing it. And you can use it in Italian food. You can, cut it up and use it fresh, put it on top of like steaks or potatoes or that type of thing. But one thing I like to do with the parsley actually is dry it, and then you can grind it up so it's a really fine kind of powdery spice. You can either add it to other Italian spices if you're making your own spices, or you can add a little bit of salt to it and it makes it a parsley salt. So that would be another really good thing that you could use parsley for. My fourth one would probably be kale. Now, we eat a lot of kale at this house. My husband eats a lot of kale. We will fry it. So we'll take a saucepan, and we'll put in some olive oil and we'll fry it down and get it nice and crunchy, but it shrinks so much. So we really grow a lot of kale. I think I want to say 3 or 4 rows of it right now. And that's another one you just really got to give it some time. It's going to have these little sprouts that come out. And I always call those the starter leaves. I've had people that ask me, like, they're tiny, they look like they're dying. Those are just your beginner leaves. And then you'll have new leaves that will come up in the center, and that's actually going to be your kale. So a lot of the plants, you'll notice they have the starter leaves. Those eventually die off, and it's just to help them get through whatever your growing media is, or the ground. And that's their main purpose, is to break ground, and then they'll die off. So don't worry about that. Another one, I would say my fifth, and I'll use this as my final one so I don't ramble too much, because I really could talk about these plants all day long. is probably the dill. And I really need to figure out how to set the time of my dill, of when I'm planting it and when I need it. So we did sun pickles this year, and I had dill all winter long. I had so much dill. I was drying it again, making it for spice. Then you can like add it in to different foods. One of my favorite things is to add it with mayonnaise, garlic, salt, and the dill, and you can actually make your own like fish dip, tartar sauce. It's really, really good. And we kind of just plowed through that. I kept making my own sauces to put on the fish. And then we got to where my pickles outside started taking off and just going crazy. And once they did that, then we had no dill in my hydroponic system because I had so much of it and I had dried it and used it all winter. So I really kind of journaled and wrote down like when those cucumbers are going to be ready, when we're going to do the pickles, and when I need to have my dill. So next year, I'm planning ahead and I will have the dill going full on because it's really hard to find at the store, especially during pickling season. A lot of the pickling spices and that type of thing, they're really, really hard to find when everybody is pickling everything from the garden. So I'm going to plan out my dill a little bit better for next year. So those are probably my top five. And we can do a whole podcast on that at another time too. I can write down a ton. If you guys want more details on that, leave comments down below and I will dive into that a little bit more for you. The next question is from Brian. And Brian, I hope you get to see this on the playback. This is a really great question. And this has to do with chickens and what do you need before you even buy your chickens? So if you guys see on my channel, I do have some chicken videos and I've done some YouTube shorts with the chickens, which seems to be a very popular thing for the YouTube shorts is just me videotaping my chickens. But, who doesn't love watching a chicken run around? And I would say the number one thing is planning ahead for your coop. I got a little obsessed when we first decided to do chickens. I want to say we're probably about 8 or 9 years in. And really started like researching. And I thought, oh, just go to the farm store and buy one of those, preset chicken coops. Okay. Those things are really good if you have no predators. If you live within a city and your city limit says you can have a couple of chickens and you maybe have a fenced in backyard and you never see a raccoon, you never see a possum, you never see a skunk, go for it. If you live like I do in the middle of 20 acres, and I actually see a fox quite often, he's my little buddy. I actually kind of like seeing him because I know my chickens are safe. Otherwise, I wouldn't. But I have this really cute, adorable fox that runs around, and we have skunk and, possum and everything else that would love my chickens as much as I do. So I would say really, really plan ahead with your chicken coop. And thanks to the love and joy of YouTube, we watched a lot of YouTube videos and just kind of took little bits and pieces of each thing to decide how we wanted to build the coop. And you'll again see in some of my videos, my coop, and hopefully this next spring, I can do a full coop tour for you. Winter's not as fun. And what we did was we bought just basically a barn or a shed, and that was pre-manufactured. We ordered it that way. And then we added on to it. So the chicken run and then inside turned part of it into their indoor coop area. So kudos to my husband because he pretty much built the whole thing. And I sat there and said, I'd really like this and I'd really like this. So one of the big things that I really, really like with how our coop setup is that I can walk into the coop and I can walk into the run. And a lot of places you'll see when you buy those little pre-manufactured ones, you're getting your eggs from the outside. There's a small area that's fenced in on the bottom and you can't get in there. And I really like a lot of interaction with my chickens. So definitely plan out the chicken coop and their living situation, number one. And do a lot of research as far as what you can do to keep them safe. And I really highly recommend the hardwire cloth And you can get that in different grades or thicknesses of hardwire cloth. And I like the hardwire cloth and then the fencing. So I do have a video on that, but I'll explain. Um, if you buy 5-foot dog fencing, you can attach that to the side of your coop just at the bottom and then bend it and then put it out across the ground and then stake it into the ground. And that really stops any predators, a neighbor's dog, anything from coming up to your coop. So they might get up to the coop and start digging, and they're going to hit one of those little chain links, and then they'll dig again. They'll hit another chain link. They'll dig again, hit another, and they'll give up. So I've had a lot of times where I've gone out there and I've had little dig marks, but that's all it's ever been. So I know my girls are safe. I That's just got to be the number one thing is planning out your coop. And I would say if you're going to build one yourself, build it. Like don't get your chickens and then as you're building and run out of time. Now, I'm going to tell you a funny story because I only say that from experience. We had already started building the coop and we knew we had it all planned out that summer. We're going to finish it. This is great. And someone got an idea that I needed my baby chicks already. So I went out and I got the baby chicks and I did the whole, they're in a box. And my first time ever doing it, they were in my kitchen. I know you can judge me. They were in my kitchen in a box because I wanted to interact with them and I had the heat lamp and I could keep an eye on them. And then we brought them downstairs into the basement, which just the room, they're so dusty. So we had them downstairs in a box and then we had to cut a hole in the side of the box and add another box and cut a hole and add another box. And at one point we had 4 huge boxes. We made them little roosting posts. We put a big wooden square frame over top of it and then put like a bird netting so they couldn't fly out because they were trying to escape. And the whole time we're building outside, like all the time, every weekend, trying to get it done and get these chickens out there. And it literally got to the point where I told my husband, I said, I have full grown chickens in my basement. I mean, they were still at their teenage, but they felt full grown. Like these chickens are so big. And we finally got everything set and we moved them out. And I want to say within a week, they started laying eggs. I was that close to they were laying eggs in my basement. So plan it. And if you have patience, build your coop one summer and get your chickens the next. Are you laughing at me? You can laugh at me. It was funny. I'm telling you, it was a lot of stress. So yeah, if you can wait, do take a whole summer and plan it all out. If you're going to build it yourself, get everything set, get your waterers, get your feeders. You can do PVC pipe feed, research it. A chicken magazine. I'm trying to think of what it's called. I think it's just called the Chicken Magazine. I subscribed to it for like 4 years and just do as much research as you can before you get the chickens. Because I know it's exciting to go out and buy baby chicks. But yeah, you're going to put yourself back up against the wall when it comes to that. So don't do that. All right, enough about the chickens. I'm going to get on to the next question. And this one comes from Marika. And she wanted to know what I add to my hydroponics, my iHarvest, which is the name brand that I use, apart from Maxi Grow. And Maxi Grow is the food or the nutrients. And then she wants to know about peroxide, HydroGuard, CalMag, etc. So those are other things that you can add. Now I'm going to be fully transparent, as I always am. All I use right now is Maxi Grow, Maxi Bloom, which is once your plants get to a point where they're actually flowering. So your green peppers, your jalapeno peppers, sugar snap peas, green beans, anything that's going to flower and then produce. Once they start to bud, you can switch over to Maxi Bloom, and then that's going to give them a little bit of a different nutrient level to help them get the flower. If you're doing actual flowers, then you're going to want to use Maxi Bloom because that's going to help. As far as peroxide, you can get food grade hydrogen peroxide, and you can mix it with water and you can put it into your tank, and that will help with algae. I have said over and over again, I love my reflective covers. The only thing I use peroxide for is to wipe around the circles or the holes of the media. So whatever type of hydroponic system you're using, tower garden, Garden, iHarvest, Lettuce Grow, anything around the edge of that media is going to build up some kind of an algae, or actually it's kind of like a crustacean or a crust of food that just kind of evaporates out of the unit. And you can use hydrogen peroxide on a paper towel and you can wipe around the edge of your unit. And that's what I use it for because I use the reflective covers. So, what the reflective covers do is obviously they're reflective on one side and the back side is black. So, it's going to really darken and dampen the back side of the plant and it's going to cover your growing media. So, if you're using rock wool, rapid rooters, which is my favorite, whatever type of growing media you're using, it's going to block the sunlight. And by blocking the sunlight, then you are not really encouraging that algae to grow. So I have very minimal algae. I do get it on the inside up against the back wall. It doesn't really affect too much. I'm still playing around with trying to figure out how to plug the holes that I'm not growing in. That is something that I've been playing around with and will keep you guys, up to date on that. Because I do get algae buildup on the ones that I'm not growing in, but I like those reflective covers. So I don't use a lot of food grade peroxide to help with my algae. HydroGuard, I have that on my wish list for Amazon. I haven't actually bought it yet. That's another one too. HydroGuard is really good for root rot, and it is gonna like really stop the rotting from happening where it turns really really dark and it gets kind of mushy, and it helps with the healthiness of your roots. I am a big trimmer of my roots. I will pull my plants out very occasionally, very often. I don't know what that word is. Very occasionally is not right. Very often. I will pull the plant right out and I will trim them. So that will help with the root rot, because if you have really, really long roots and the bottom of your roots are super duper healthy and the top is just kind of dying off and starting to rot, by cutting off the newer root, it's really encouraging the older root at the top to keep working and keep growing and not to rot out. And like I said, with the basil, having my basil around for a year, if I didn't cut those roots, the entire inside of my unit would be root. That's all it would be. The basil root is insane. So I encourage you to pull the plants out, trim the roots down, and that will help with root rot. But you can use HydroGuard. A lot of people do. It is a very good, highly recommended product that you mix in with your water. So if you have a tank, and say your tank is 14, 15 gallons, however much you have in it, the instructions will tell you how much to add to that 15-gallon tank. Say it's 15 gallons. Then every week or two, or however often your plants are drinking the water and you have to add, the easiest thing is to try and add like a gallon at a time. So you can get an old milk jug and then just put a little bit of your HydroGuard in there, fill it up your gallon, and just be adding a gallon at a time. And then that way you always have your balanced HydroGuard. The Kale Mag I haven't used either. I know that's a really, really good one for the leaves of like your green peppers and your jalapenos. And I have noticed sometimes I get some leaves that just don't look that fantastic and I cut them off. But those are things that are on my list to try. And like I've said, grow with me. We're in this together. I'm a beginner with a year under my belt now, and we can learn these things together, and then I can come back. And so I love these questions because it really makes me think like, okay, I think I gotta try this HydroGuard and this Kale Mag for sure. So those are my three main questions that I got off of social media. And I'm going to go about a half hour today is what I've been planning for my first couple of podcasts. And so the last and final thing I want to talk about is aphids, bugs, and having a bug problem with your hydroponic system. This is a hard one because I get them and I get them a lot. And I have done so much to get rid of them. And I kind of am at a point where I think it's just, I don't want to say inevitable, but unless I really tear my systems apart, which you can do, you can tear them apart, remove all of your plants. You can even put your plants into water, just to let the roots sit in some water for a little bit if you want. But the best thing is to actually take your units apart and let them rest for about 2 weeks. And you can clean them, not plant anything in them, and you might be able to get your bug control down to a minimum or down to nothing if you've removed all the plants. I'm not willing to do that at this point to remove all of my plants. And the fact that I live in the woods, sometimes when I'm out, even at the chicken coop or in the garden this summer, like I don't know if I'm bringing them in on my clothes, if they're sneaking through the screen. So I'm really hoping now that we're going from fall to winter, they're going to be dead outside. And once I can control them inside again, that is definitely going to help and not to bring them in. So I tell a lot of my own personal stories because I want you guys to grow from my stories. And my biggest one and my biggest mistake was bringing in outdoor plants. And it is that time where everything, we had a hard frost last night and all of my deck flowers, they're done. They didn't make it through the night. This morning, they're all mush. And I do have a huge hibiscus tree, and I did bring that in. I have to bring that in. That went all the way on the other side of the house. And I have a couple other plants that I really do want to bring in, but they are going to be in the basement. I don't want to have them around my hydroponic systems at all. So that's one thing is if you're going to do hydroponics, you want to be all water based. You don't want to mix water growing with soil growing. So if you're going to be soilless, like all the way through and through. And that will really, really help with an aphid problem because, that's kind of where they'll come into your house from plants. And once they see that hydroponic, it's the perfect living condition for them. It's got the moisture and it's got the plants, and the plants are like the most nutritious plants they're ever going to get. And so they're really, really hard to get rid of. Now, another thing that I heard about treating the aphids is if you buy a certain type of product, which I've used a lot at this point, I want to say 5, 6, 7 different things. So I went to a hydroponics store and I talked to one of the gentlemen there that is super knowledgeable. He's just insanely smart. And he was talking to me about the different types of sprays and bug killers. And if you spray your entire unit and you think they're all gone, and there are 2 aphids, white flies, black flies, whatever it might be, if 2 of them made it through, that means that they're immune to that type of bug spray or that type of neem oil or whatever you're using, the soap and the lavender oils and the whatever you're making your DIYs. That means that they're immune to that. So when those 2 aphids get together, all of their babies are also immune to that whole system of spraying. So he really recommended you rotate. So you're going to kill off a whole bunch and then you're going to turn around and treat it with something else and you're going to treat it with something else. One thing that I have found right now for me that is actually working, again, I've said the Eco Garden. I like Eco Garden. It is said to be organic and it's a little bit oily, but not bad. And so I can spray that, or that's what I will dip my plants in and do a full wash with the Eco Garden. But one of the best things to treat after that or to continue is Diatomaceous Earth. Now, Diatomaceous Earth you can get at any farm store. You can get it online. And I actually use it out in the chicken coop and I sprinkle it all over their nesting posts, their nesting boxes, out in the coop for them to dust bathe in because it kills mites and bugs and whatever might bother them. And also the aphids and the flies, the little black flies, white flies, they don't like it either. So you can easily dust and powder your plants. And then by doing that, it's just a light powder and it's really easy to clean off. So if you're going to be cutting your kale or, your lettuces, which my aphids don't bother my lettuces as much as they do my kale, my cilantro, my dill. But you can take those and rinse them off and it just comes off. You can shake it and get a lot of the powder off first and then wash them really, really easy. And you can get food grade diatomaceous earth, which my chickens eat, and it helps with internal, if they have any bugs or anything internal in their systems. So it's really easy. I don't feel like it's, a danger for us to be using that at all. But when you're doing green peppers, jalapeno peppers, all that, it's fine on the leaves of the plants. It's just, your peppers and that, just rinse them off. But the powder doesn't really stick to them and the aphids aren't going to be on them as much as they are on your leaves. So I will continue to let you guys know how that goes. Like I said, I'm always, always honest about aphids. But when you're doing any type of hydroponic gardening, I just really want you to be aware that that is a side effect. Now, they're not something that is like all over my house. I'm not sitting down on the couch and I have little bugs crawling on me. They love the hydroponic systems. They're going to stay there. That's their environment. So it's not a bug that's, all over the place. I think my biggest problem is fruit flies because of, finishing up with the garden. And the catchy, that thing is amazing. I still stand by that. I did a review on that. I can put a link to that in the description of this video afterwards as well. And that little fan, I open it up and I find all these little tiny gnats in the fruit flies. That really, really helps kind of keep that under control. So I think those are the things that I wanted to go over tonight was the questions and then keep you guys up to date on the bugs. And also I'll kind of wrap up and end on this is the deep water culture, the DWC type of hydroponic growing. So I did dive into that. I did an unboxing and assembly of that, posted the video on Tuesday. And I'm going to keep going with that with my lettuces because I think that when I have my lettuces in with my basil and my dill and my parsley, and I'm trying to think what else, I just added a whole bunch of new stuff to that unit. They really like a low pH and they like a good fan. They want cool water for the roots so I can throw some ice cubes in and just to kind of keep them in an environment totally on their own. I'm going to see if that works better. So if I had one full unit out of my two, if it was all lettuce, I could do that. Either one of the units, but I play around with too much. I grow too much. I don't want to say too much. Superb advice. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that very, very much. I'm glad you're here, Rustbox. So I'll keep you guys up to date on the deep water culture. And if you want to follow me on my Instagram, I'm trying to post a little bit there as to what it's doing. And then I'll do a review video later once everything's really grown. But I did split my lettuces. So I kind of thinned them out and they're doing really well. And they need their own grow light. So I'm kind of working on how to build a little PVC thing for that because they're really sprouting up right now a lot. But if you guys ever have questions, you can post them down in these live streams. You can post them in my regular videos. You can reach out to me on Instagram or my Facebook group, Grow With Angie, and I will always answer your questions. So I appreciate the 3 that I got or I selected from my question last week. And Brian, Haley, and Marika, thank you very much for your questions. And I'm glad that you guys stopped in with me tonight. And hopefully I will be able to do this again next Saturday or Sunday. It's Sunday. I lose track of time. It's going by too fast. You guys, I can't believe that this year's almost over and we're almost the end of October, which really marks 1 year of my hydroponic growing. And well, hi, Tess. Yeah, so it's been a year, since I started with my first system, and I've learned so much, and you guys have really helped out with that too, and I'm gonna continue to, keep experimenting. If there's something you guys want me to either purchase and try, as long as it's within my budget, then I will definitely be doing that. If there's something you want me to try and grow, I will try that. I think one of the funniest things that I'm growing right now is alfalfa, and my husband wants it for his green smoothies in the morning, and I gotta say this alfalfa is just, like, all over the place. I mean, it looks beautiful, but it is just everywhere. It s climbs and goes everywhere, and it kinda looks like I'm just growing grasses all over, but it's fun, and it looks good with the parsley, so they're happy together, so I'm gonna keep doing that for a little bit. But yeah, if you guys have anything like that that you want me to try and grow, I will definitely do that, and again, questions, always post them, and I will try and answer them for you guys on Sunday night. So I will see you guys on the next episode of Lettuce, Turnip, and Sprout. All right, you guys, thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you next week.